What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka the Senator of Chaos and Controversy, and today I want to share with y'all a conversation that I had earlier, and it's in regards to the whole going back to defunding the police, okay, and why people were so bent out of shape about, taking all these resources from the cops, is it gonna solve anything? This, that, and everything else, yada 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 yada. Okay. I dissected that argument, looked at the anatomy of the conversation, and what it all boils down to is our tax money that coming from the taxpayers not only fund the agency in regards to law enforcement, but whenever there is negligence on their part, we are also responsible for that. Our tax money goes towards paying out to the victims of the families that law enforcement had unjustly did what they did, and the consequences don't fall on them, but it falls on us. Okay. Now, thinking about this, you often hear some of these people who jump on the whole back to blue bandwagon. And people say, damn, Tony, you always like putting cops down, this, that, and everything else. You got an issue with law enforcement. No, I got an issue when it comes to us being citizens. And I'm trying my best to leave race out the equation. Okay? I'm trying to stick to a point without it being a whole racial whatever. Because then that gets derailed and people want to throw these rebuttals just to throw you off. So I'm just sticking with law enforcement and civilians, because it's not just those on one side of the fence with with the color spectrum. There's also other people who are also affected. Okay, now you often hear, oh, when it comes to the whole issue in regards to drugs, for example. We all know that drugs come into this country and certain agencies documented are responsible for it. And then everybody else becomes scapegoats, or or become a victim of circumstance. Okay? Um and a lot of people like to say, well, people make choices in the matter. Again, you're correct when it comes to the choices that are made in regards to what we indulge in, what we entertain, what we choose or what we choose not to do. I give you that. But then again, understanding that doesn't, how should I put it? Let other people off the hook for their role in being accountable for their actions as well. If you're going to hold one group's feet to the fire, then on that same note, with that same energy, you better be holding everybody else accountable and holding their feet to the fire as well, because they have the same amount of guilt, they have the same amount of responsibility and accountability that is not awarded to them, but everybody else. So again, when it comes to certain agencies that we know have the means to allow the drugs to come in, have these laws in the system to adjust, because there's profit when it comes to the whole drug industry through the unjustice system, through law enforcement, the private prison industry. Okay. With all that being said, the one the one thing that I hear is, they're getting the drugs off the street. They're putting away all these drug dealers and these addicts, and then they're destroying the community. Okay, I can understand where you're coming from with that particular perspective. Now, with that being said, help me understand this. If people are so concerned about the what is the term that I'm looking for? The integrity of the community. Okay, if people are that heartfelt about the community, and you're arguing against defunding the police, do you really think financially that the police are hurting? How they interact with the public, they don't care about how they engage you. Most are on a power trip. Most abuse their position of authority. And when you have the drug task force or just the regular law enforcement within itself, they go and make these arrests or drug busts or whatever the case may be. They confiscate the drugs. They confiscate whether it's marijuana, cocaine, heroin, um, opioids, meth, and along with supposedly taking the product off the streets, there's also the financial part where you have seen where they've taken millions upon millions up into the billions in cash. That goes into evidence. Now, for the argument that's presented saying that these drug dealers or the drugs that's coming in is destroying the community, you would think that the money that is being confiscated from these drug dealers will go back into the community to better the community, to clean up the community, to provide all these, how should I say, resources and other avenues, especially for children, to influence them to do something positive with their life instead of gravitating towards, see, like the influence of gangs and drugs and other things of that nature. But they're taking away everything to help kids better themselves or live their lives as kids, as far as like parks and recreation, um, having to do with sports, art, and all that other stuff. They're taking all that away from the kids and leaving them with only, but also a few options to go towards as far as like where their attention is going to gravitate towards. Okay, I say that to say this. So instead of the money that is taken from what people would say to be um, bad within its own nature to do something positive, where does that money go? To the police department. And I say, if the police department is already funded by us taxpayers, whenever there's negligence found on their part, whenever they do things crossing the line and a life is taken or somebody has been abused or somebody has been physically altered by the encounter with law enforcement and a lawsuit is put in place and the city has to end up paying through our taxpayer money the victims in the situation whenever dealing with law enforcement, we foot the bill. But yeah, all this money goes to who when they do these drug busts? Goes to law enforcement. They create whatever an extended part of the agency for supposed drug tax for whatever. They have these new cars, this new equipment. The salaries get bumped up. The DA gets paid. Does any of that money go back into the community? No. New prisons are being built. So how do you fix a society that you say have an issue that has a cancer, but you're doing nothing to cure it? All you doing is what the medical industry is doing. You ain't curing shit. You just putting a band-aid on something to prolong the existence of whatever the issue is to continue to exist. Meanwhile, the people that's basically responsible for the issue continuing is reaping the benefits. And the crazy thing is, when I was talking about civil forfeiture, it's like I sit here and I think about how they get away by, number one, creating laws to justify them targeting individuals. And it don't matter what race you are, because everybody's subjected to this, especially with the civil forfeiture. So going back to the whole drug issue, they've created laws to engage, for law enforcement to engage with the public, especially with these traffic stops. And this is where people want to argue, well, if you just comply, if you do this, if you do that, stop engaging with the officers. But sometimes you need to put your foot down and know your rights and not allow these people to just walk all over you because they figure that you're ignorant of the law. So they can take advantage of your ignorance and do whatever the fuck they want to do and then let it wash out in the end. And sometimes people can't afford that. But the dumbing down of this country is what they benefit from. You being ignorant. Not not realizing that you have a leg to stand on, but since you don't know that you got that leg to stand on, they're like, oh well, another sucker. So again, when people say, you need to comply with law enforcement, yeah, under certain circumstances, I agree. If they're gonna escalate the situation, you gotta find a way to de-escalate it yourself, because they're not gonna care about your well-being or your self-preservation, because it's all about them. Fuck you. Um, Furthermore, talking about the civil forfeiture, with the situation with the whole drug scenario, it's like they use that to justify confiscating any kind of financial, how should I say, holdings on a person, because they say, well, what are you doing with X amount of dollars on your person? First of all, it's no one's business to question you on why you have money. People work. People have good jobs. People probably got a good tax refund. People probably took out a loan. It's transferring the money from point A to point B. But because, everybody's guilty until proven innocent, you gotta somehow prove yourself to these individuals and explain unnecessarily, because again, it's none of their business, why you have so much on you. And the conclusion immediately jumped to, with prejudice, is it gotta be drug related. And that's the problem. And then when people don't know anything about their rights, they take your money. You got to go to court. You got to fight to get what already belongs to you. And then they don't charge you with anything. And then they say, oh, well, and this is how crooked the system is set up. And people don't see, and for some people, they don't see it as being problematic. And it's always that issue that don't affect people until it does directly. So they'll sit from a distance, yapping their gums, being all critical, talking ignorant because they don't know any better. And then when they find their ass in the hot seat, in the predicament because they want to sit there and throw their opinions out there, and then when that bullet ricochets and come back, oh, now you want to pay attention. Now it's that, well, damn, I should have listened to what this person was talking about instead of just listening to respond, instead of listening to understand. I don't know. But the purpose of this video was basically to point out the contradictions, and when people try to go with a partial narrative to justify the ends supposedly justifying the means, which is a bunch of bullshit because it doesn't. If there was really good intentions behind the existence of law enforcement, then certain conversations wouldn't be taking place, or how things are handled in the way that they are. I'm just saying. And if it's all about bettering the community, how come the benefits seem to sway in the favor of the people that, I don't know, are a part of the problem, but you look at them as being the solution and they're not? I'm just saying. Anyway, until next time, until next video, please like, share, and subscribe. And you already know what I'm going to do. Peace.